So we've got our pattern out. I've got the leather. This is Wickett and Craig's traditional harness leather. This is medium brown. First thing I do is I'll put the pattern out here, and then I'll just kind of cut round about, where that's, make sure I ain't got no crazy scuffs or nothing first. But I'll cut kind of round about where that's gonna be to give myself a smaller piece of leather to work with. You want to make sure your knife's real sharp. I could probably use a new blade in this knife right now, but we're gonna roll with it. If I change the blade out, I'll do so off camera, so you don't gotta sit here forever and watch that. So now I got a piece cut out about about the size for the holster, smaller piece to work with, and now we'll just take a scratch awl and trace the pattern out onto the leather. So now that everything is traced out, now we will begin cutting out the holster. If you don't get the cut in the first pass, it's fine, just go back again. It's better to actually, not try to cut all the way through right off the bat. Just kind of take it slow and easy so you don't mess up. You can't add more leather back if you cut too much off. The best way to go around corners is to not try to work your way around them, but to do small straight cuts all the way around the corner until you get back to a somewhat straight edge. So when I get to a sharp corner like this, straight cuts all the way around to give you a nice cleaner cut. And you'll have little bits of leather laying all over the place, and hard to keep things clean, but that's all right. So I'll get this cut the rest of the way out here, and we'll come back to the next step. Now, one thing I want to mention is these tight corners like this, it's really hard to get your knife in there, and you're probably going to mess the piece up. So best thing to do is when you get a really tight corner like that is take a rotary punch or some kind of punch the center, the tightest section out. So punch a hole in that tight corner there, and then cut from the inside of that corner out so that you don't risk cutting too far into that corner and messing your piece up. And there you have that V shape going down there. Okay, once I have the leather cut out, now the next step I take is I take some wing dividers and I will trace a line all the way around the edges. This will serve two purposes. One, it will give me a line for my stitching. Two, in the areas that are not stitched, like here at the bottom where I'm at now, it just gives a nice decorative line around the outside edge. Just give it a little bit of character. Y'all know me, I'm not too big into tooling and all that fancy stuff, but I like to have just maybe a plain, simple line around the edge, and that's about all the decorative stuff I like to have on it. And here we are at the end. And there we have a line all the way around the outside edges of the holster. You may have noticed that I have some scuffs on here. I don't cut around the imperfections in the leather. Leather's a natural thing. It comes off it's the hide of an animal, and I think that just gives it more character. This leather is super high quality. That doesn't hurt a thing, and it makes it unique. Every item is different. Now the next thing I will do is I'll take an edge beveler and I will bevel all the edges of this holster. It just kind of rounds them off and makes them a little nicer so that they are not just kind of squared and unfinished. So we'll go around. Well, usually won't do the stitching part. The part that's going to be stitched, I'll do that later. So I just kind of do the bottom right now and the top. I will bevel the edges after it's stitched, because you're going to have to sand it down and straighten things up a bit anyway. So we'll worry about those edges after the stitching and the sanding and the getting everything flush is already done. So we'll do the front side here. And then we'll also do the back side, or the inside. And once again on this part we will not do the edges that are going to be stitched. Just the top and the bottom. The edges that are going to be stitched, they're going to be stitched together on the inside. You don't really want that beveled anyway. And there we have it. Edges are beveled. Now for the belt loop that's going to go on the back, I'll take a 1.5 inch strap, 1.5 inches wide that is, and I'll cut about 5 inches off for that belt loop. I use actually the belt ends, so I get to reuse the ends that I cut off of belts and use them for these belt loops. So what I would do now is I would take this outside, because I keep a log outside that I stamp and cut things out on, and I would smack this belt tip cutter and cut a pointed English tip on the end. But what I'm going to do right now, because I'm not going to go out there, is mark that with the belt tip cutter and then just cut it with my knife. Now what I'm going to do is bevel these edges and put my stamp in the middle, and then we'll come back and go on to the next step. And my light on this new setup is dying, so I'm going to have to charge it before I come back. See you soon. Okay, so now that the edges are beveled on both of these pieces, I'm going to take some gum tragacanth and varnish these edges up, slick them down, and get them ready to be coated in edge coat. This basically just slicks the fibers of that leather down. If you've watched any of my other videos before, you have seen me say this and seen me do it. Basically just want to keep going with one of these edge slickers till it starts to squeak. And you get a nice smooth edge there. And we'll do that on all the edges that we've beveled so far. Alright, so now that everything is beveled and the edges are slicked up, what we'll do now is take another dauber and some edge coat, and we will coat the edges, which will give it some protection. I kind of singe these daubers. Gets rid of any little fuzzy hairs that are hanging off there that could give me not so clean of a line. And because this stuff, if you get it on the surface, you can really mess your work up with edge coat. It's messy and it will not come off. I mean, if there is a way to get it off, somebody knows, let me know, because I don't know how to do it. But be careful with edge coat, it will make a mess. Now, once these edges have dried some, dried to the touch, we'll put it on the stump that I have that I punch holes with. We'll punch all the stitching holes and we'll be ready to stitch it up. Okay, so now everything is punched. We have all the holes punched for stitching. I just use a hole punch for these holsters. Some items, like smaller items like wallets, I'll use an awl and make smaller holes. But for this one, I don't mind the little bit bigger holes, a little bit bigger thread. I'll be using some off-white or tan thread, get some nice contrast going on. And we're going to stitch it up. Done. All right, everything's all stitched up. The edges are complete. So now, one last thing to do. That last thing is fit test. They're a little tight at first, which is good because it's going to loosen up over time. So you want a good tight fit right off the bat. So there we have it. It is complete. This is a cross draw. It will sit like this, about this angle. And that's it, guys. See the front and the back. So thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the process. And if you'd like to get into leatherwork, I'd like to say that it's not rocket science. There's not a lot of, it takes some time to get, decent at it, but it's not that complicated. It just takes some time. That's all. And if it works, it works. A lot of people will say you have to do things this way or you have to do things that way. Just do things your way. There are some things that work better than others. But, a lot of people do things completely different, and that's okay. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you'll hit like and subscribe if you want more content on leatherwork and self-reliance. And I'll see you next time.